Hey, welcome to Beyond Organic Wine, a soil punk investigation of wine, a counterculture revolution of wine informed by ecology, a 21st century reckoning with the realities of the world that we live in and need to make wine for. Beyond Organic Wine hopes to inspire you with new and alternative ways of thinking about and practicing wine, and hopes to give you knowledge and resources that will inspire you to become a leader in the future of wine, a future that is dynamic, diverse, and delicious. And if you don't know me, I'm Adam Huss. Thanks so much for listening. Most of this juicy episode is available for paid subscribers to the Beyond Organic Wine Substack only. You can easily subscribe at beyondorganicwine.substack.com or on the Substack app. Beyond Organic Wine exists because of the support of listeners like you, and I'm incredibly grateful for you and humbled by those of you who make this possible. Thank you. And I am so excited, even beyond excited, to announce that my first book about wine is officially available for pre-order. The book is called Wine Liberated, The Ecological Revolution and the Vintner's Inspiring Change. It's getting published by Chelsea Green Publishing, who have published so many of my favorite books, it's ridiculous, and I'm humbled. And it has a foreword by Mimi Castile, who I can't thank enough, and who is such a good writer that her foreword creates almost unrealistic expectations for the quality of the rest of the book. The marketing department created a cover that has an almost retro psychedelic vibe, which I'm sure they had no idea suits me about as perfectly as wine in a glass. And my greatest hope for this Wine Liberated is that it incites many much-needed conversations about how limited and monolithic our dominant wine culture is, and how much potential and opportunity and discovery and excitement exists when we begin to imagine wine free of its current arbitrary, unnecessary, and even damaging confines. I don't want to overhype it, but if I don't hype it, who will? I just haven't seen this perspective on wine in a published form yet. The early readers of this book have said that they can't stop thinking about it when they go to buy wine now. The book has changed the way that they see what we call wine, and has caused them to begin to question this monolithic culture and be able to imagine a different, more diverse, and more ecologically inspired version of wine. And they can't go back. So I guess beware. Wine Liberated could change how you think about wine forever. Wine Liberated is my first book, and I'm learning that pre-ordering is really important to the success of a book, so I'm including a link in the show notes to what I think is the best place to pre-order Wine Liberated. It's got affordable shipping costs, and most importantly, buying through this service, bookshop.com, also supports small indie bookshops directly. In fact, you can choose to support your favorite local indie bookstore directly. Also, the link I'm including isn't an affiliate link, which will simultaneously support Beyond Organic Wine. So you get Wine Liberated at a discounted rate and support independent bookstores and this podcast all at once. And of course, if you have your own favorite place to order books, Wine Liberated is available pretty much everywhere. Thank you so much. The heroes of Wine Liberated I want to mention are people who I met through this podcast, who took the time to share their knowledge and inspire me and listeners around the world with their courageous and beautiful ecological approaches to wine. I'm honored to be able to share their stories, and I'm deeply grateful to have been a student of so many incredible wine pioneers. And speaking of wine pioneers, we live in a time that I think will be looked back upon as the end of one era in wine and the beginning of another. My guest, Chase Purdy, talks about the excitement and potential he sees in hybrid grapes and the shift that he has seen in just a few years since he started learning and writing about hybrid grapes as a journalist. Chase is a New York-based writer and the editor of Commodity Bread, a twice-monthly newsletter about hybrid grape wines and the food system. He's also the author of Billion Dollar Burger, a narrative nonfiction book that documents the rise of cell-cultured meat and the global race to get it to market. Chase has written about the business and technology of food for Quartz and the politics of food for Politico. His stories have appeared in the New York Times and in newspapers across the United States, collected from courtrooms, crime scenes, laboratories, and the halls of government. He is a New American Fellow. Something about hybrid grapes caught Chase's attention a few years ago. Since then, he's been on a journey of discovery, following his instincts as a journalist and asking the hard questions that led him deeper into the strange wonderland world of wine in which a global monoculture excludes so much potential for wine. Chase takes us on this journey through Red Queens and magical potions and Mad Hatters to find a new vision for wine that explodes with the new flavors and experiences that he has been experiencing. He describes the changes he's seen in just a few years, even in Paris, where he can now find many options for drinking wine made from hybrid grapes. In this conversation, Chase compares wine producers to artists, and this really resonated with me. In art, we don't value imitations. We value uniqueness. We value those who saw the world in a way that no one else did and portrayed that vision with originality. There is only one Van Gogh, Cassatt, Monet, or O'Keeffe, and we value them all the more for being one of a kind. Wine could be the same. A wine producer could develop grapes perfectly suited for their land that no one else has anywhere else on earth, and make wine that no one else can make. We could have appellations in North America or Asia in which, to use the appellation name on your bottle, the genetics of the grapes you grow must be indigenous to the appellation. Rather than the next generation inheriting the burden of reproducing Starry Night again and again in soulless repetition, they could be free to develop unique masterpieces of their own, wines that future generations can only remember and use for inspiration, but never replicate because they have their own breathtaking contributions to make to the history of wine. This is a vision that many aren't ready for yet, but if Chase's journey is any indication, it's a vision whose seeds are already germinating, sprouting, and even in some vineyards and restaurants and mines, beginning to bloom. Enjoy. Chase, welcome. Thanks so much for doing this. And I will just say, you popped onto the hybrid grape scene. Gosh, when was it? I mean, it was like over a year ago now, right? A couple years? Has it been?
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. Second, yeah,
Oh,
it's been like 2.5 years, almost three, and on the scene is very generous of you.
well, you started a really cool. I mean, you are. I mean, I'll let you introduce yourself, but I mean, you are a writer, an investigative journalist, a deep researcher who wrote a book about our food system that you can talk about. But then you turned your attention to these sort of grapes, and I don't know, and you started Grape Rush. And I want to talk about that journey. But yeah, I mean, please,
Sure.
please introduce yourself a little bit better than I did.
Yeah, no, I spent 12 or 13 years in journalism covering everything from the criminal justice system at a local level, but found my way into food reporting when I got to Politico, where I covered sort of the politics and policy of food and agriculture, which led to a role in a different newsroom, covering sort of the business of food. And so I've always kind of, since those days, have been like really interested in kind of the food system and the politics and business and technology that keeps it humming along. And yeah, I think that's sort of like still what I'm interested in. I've never been sort of like a food reviewer or someone who I don't think I'm like very qualified to do that. But it's sort of like I love getting obsessed about the nuts and bolts of how certain things work. And
Mm.
that is, you mentioned the book. I wrote a book about lab grown meat or cell cultured meat, if you want to be more sort of that's sort of the term that they often prefer, people in that space. But and that was
What
an
was it?
obsession for a while. And then I ran into, well, sorry,
What was the title of your book?
a billion-dollar burger.
$1 Billion Burger.
Yeah, yep. And it's been a minute since that came out, but since then I've really kind of just fell into this rabbit hole and haven't sort of climbed my way out, and maybe I don't want to.
Well, I just want to clarify when you say cell culture, does that include things like Beyond Burger and Impossible Burger, where they cell culture that thing that creates the beef taste and then it's proteins from veggies? Or is this actual like growing like meat cells?
Yeah, this is when you grow fat tissue and you grow muscle tissue and you put them
Right,
together, and that is technically real meat. You just didn't need to slaughter an animal for it.
right.
What the Beyond and Impossible, what they were making, I think, I mean, like, yes, they used a lot of like heme iron, is maybe what
Yeah,
you're
that's what
talking
I'm
about.
thinking about. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was
but
thinking
that's all
about.
plant-based, all
Right,
plant-based, which I have written about those companies before, but they were not part of the bigger project.
right. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
just a fun thing for people to know about you. Back to Grape Rush. So
Sure.
what was, I mean, if you can remember back, like what what did you stumble upon, or what ideas or what experiences did you have that made you go down this rabbit hole?
So I it was sort of popped up during a freelance article that I was writing for an outlet that no longer exists. You may remember there was very briefly sort of a publication out there called the New Wine Review, and they, alongside sort of wine reviews, they also ran coverage of just different aspects of the business. And I was assigned to work on a piece about sort of just this was during a few years ago when wildfires were really wreaking havoc in California wineland. And basically, it was like, is California gonna recover? Is it sort of out of the woods yet? Type question. And
Mm.
and keep in mind here too, I guess, like I had never written about wine ever. It was just sort of like when you freelance write, you really just kind of find yourself talking to all sorts of different people. And as a journalist, you're generally versatile enough that you can kind of jump in and, you know, own your own your lack of knowledge and start talking to people so that you can write about something with in a cogent way. And during the course of that reporting and researching, I ran across a some academic literature, and in it was mentioned sort of hybrid grapes, which is something I had never heard of before.
Hmm.
And so it was during the reporting of that story that it first popped up for me. And I remember being like, well, I'm going to try this. It seems interesting. And I went to like three or four different local wine shops that I have near me here in Brooklyn. And all of them were just like,
Found zero.
what are you talking about? Um, and then so I was just like, all right, well, I guess I'll march into Manhattan. And I went to this giant sort of wine shop they have called Astor Wine and Spirits. They sort of the whole like their whole thing, I think, is that they have a little bit of everything. And
Right.
I went there, and that's whenever I found a couple of bottles by like Argista. And the first hybrid grape wine I tasted was the Loup d'Or, which was Brianna.
Ooh, that's a
And
good start.
yeah, and from there, it was a very expensive bottle too, but it was
Yeah,
just kind of like, okay, this is what I have I'll do. This is maybe worth the investment.
that's fantastic. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
what was your? I mean, and from there, I mean, we could sort of talk through, a little bit of where, if we jump ahead, if we fast forward, you are now sort of subsuming Grape Rush under your sort of overall
Right.
food investigation, food writing brand, and if you want to talk about that, um,
Sure. I mean, I think first here, everything that I'm doing is sort of so silly. Like, I don't know. I started Grape Rush, and because I loved writing about the wine and learning about the wine, I also had like another side project newsletter called Commodity Bread, that where I just sort of focused a little bit more on like agriculture and food. And the two did not cross paths. And finally, I was just kind of like, most of the wine stories I'm writing are kind of related more to sort of systems and climate change and things like that. And why would wine be separate from this other thing that I do? Plus, it's just a
right?
lot easier to manage one thing instead of two. So
Yes.
I joke with my friends that Grape Rush was acquired by Commodity Bread. So um, and
That's great.
so, yeah, and so you'll find more like, I mean, it's all the same stuff. I'm doing the same writing about the same people, the same wines, the same types of stories. If there's anything different here, actually, and there is that I like really love playing around with data visuals for sort of the agriculture food systems newsletter. And so pretty much every single piece on wine will now have a sort of data viz element to it, which I think is really fun because often a chart can speak 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So why not do it?
No, it's true. It's like, I mean, I just reread your most recent thing that I want to get to, but it's like if I, in rereading it, I think like the things that I now remember are the charts, and
Hmm.
that's, I'm obviously a pretty visual learner, but I think everybody is, or many people are anyway. And yeah, there's so, I mean, this is something I like doing too. And it's funny. I in thinking about the writing, I'm just like, I pushed the limits of what wine can contain because because my interests, like have obviously are very broadly about agriculture and just global approaches to living on planet Earth, and which so
Yeah.
wine becomes almost metaphoric, or like this little a bottle to contain many things, multitudes.
Yeah.
um yeah, I feel that. And well, in your journey from back then to now, how has your understanding evolved? How have your ideas evolved? What do you know now that you feel, confident talking about with confidence? Versus, at the beginning when you're investigating and just exploring and trying to understand, what was that journey like, and where are you now? Like, what are some of the real takeaways that you've come to?
Um, so it's a good question. I think that, the whole journey, I guess, just to start it, was sort of this I never really liked the idea of, I think a part of what kept me interested in this is that I do like drinking wine, and I have liked drinking wine for a long time, but it is really hard to walk into a wine shop and have, as sort of like a layperson,
Yes.
and it's just sort of like the choices are many. And I don't know if you this is a little bit of a tangent, but the Atlantic just ran a piece called "My Quest to Find America's Best Free Bread." It was written by Katie Weaver. It's absolutely hilarious. Run, don't walk to it. But in it, she sort of describes, in her quest to find the best free bread in America, she sort of describes, she was like, Americans come in three different stripes. And it's, the first is, if you ask them that question, they'll sort of salivate at the opportunity for you to finish asking the question so they can answer it. Like, they have an idea of where the best free restaurant bread is. The second group is basically like not interested in answering the question because it's kind of just maybe silly, and they don't entertain it, and it's kind of maddening. And then the third group is the group that's basically like, they immediately experience fatigue because there's this idea, this sort of like panicky moment where they're like, there is a best free restaurant bread in America, and they wouldn't even hazard to make a suggestion at the risk of getting it wrong of where it would be. And I kind of felt like that third tier of a and when I walk into a wine shop, because it's like,
Right.
what is the bottle to pick? And so, and I wasn't really interested in sort of,
Can I dig into just your emotion there, because this is so important, I think, to like that consumer experience is, I mean, I think there's so many profound parts to that. Well, that's it for now. If you are not a paid subscriber, if you'd like to become a paid subscriber to get full access to this and all the content at Beyond Organic Wine, you can easily do that at beyondorganicwine.substack.com. Thank you so much. And here's a little music from Colden Pro. A big thanks to him for this.